ninth lecture, we talked about research methods, methodology and design in the last two lectures. Today we are going to continue talking about this because it's very important to understand the core of this course, and the core of this course is methods and design. So elements of research design, defining your terms and hypotheses. We have some key terms today and we need to understand them. We have independent variable and dependent variable and operational definition. So in each research we have something called variables that we want to test or measure. Let me give you an example. And the easiest example is the effects of using computers in teaching grammar. So you have two groups. The control group that who doesn't have access to computers, only textbooks. They have the textbook, they do exercises, they go home and come back to class. The second group, the experimental group, no, they have computers, they have the exercises in computers, the whole textbook in the computers. So we want to see the effects of computers on learning grammar on students. So what are the variables here? We have the variables computers and the subjects learning English. So which is affecting the other? The learning is affecting computers, or computers are affecting the learning? Yes, computers are affecting the learning. So the variables here are computers and learning. So let's define independent variable. Variable that is manipulated by the researcher, or the variable that is thought to affect the outcome, or the dependent variable. So the variable that affects the other variable is called independent. And in our example, computers are going to affect learning. So computers are independent variable. So let's say that in the final exam you get this example. We have this topic, computers and their effects on students' achievements. And you are asked, the independent variable is computers, achievements, students. The answer is computers. Computers are the independent variable. It is going to affect the other variable, which is called dependent variable. Why it's called dependent? Because it depends on the independent variable. I know it's like a mystery or it's like a joke, but this is it in research: independent and dependent variable. So the independent variable, you manipulate this this variable, because you are going to design. You select the computers. You are going to design the materials for the computer, so you can manipulate the independent variables. The dependent variable you cannot manipulate. Why? Because you want to measure the effects of the independent variable on the dependent variable. The dependent variable is a variable that is measured to assess the effects of the independent variable. So the less variable we have in our research, the less it is, the more it is focused. The more variable, the more it is less focused. Let's say that you increased the independent variable. You want to see the computer effects in learning, but also you want to see the gender effect on the learning. You want to see who is going to learn better than the other, males or females. So you introduce another independent variable. You want to introduce proficiency, language proficiency, that is which is going to learn faster or better than the other, the high proficient students, the good students, or the bad students. You may want to introduce another variable, those students who learned English in local schools, or from international schools, or from abroad. So the more you squeeze in variables, the more scattered your research is. The less focus is your research. So the best way to do is to minimize the number of variables. You just want to see the computer effects on students, and that's it. Sometimes you are advised to specify the type of students, and this is advisable, but you need to decide, do you want to measure these effects or not? Some supervisors would ask you, well, don't say or don't select any student. Try to be specific, male or female, high proficient or low proficient. That means good or bad students. Do you want to see their background? Are they coming from local schools, from private schools, from international schools, from abroad? Well, this is good to be specified, but do not measure them. Do not measure the effects of these on a student. So this is different. If you decide to measure all of these variables, gender, level of education or level of proficiency, background knowledge, you are going to scatter your research, and it's going to be less focused. So it is advisable that you specify them in your sample or in your students, but do not measure their effects. Operational definition, procedure for measuring and defining a construct. What measures will you be using? So operational definition is talking about the operations or procedures that you are going to talk. You need to tell us and describe your story. You say, well, from day one, I designed a questionnaire or a test or interview, and then I checked them with my supervisors, with different experts in the world, and then they said, well, this is okay. And then the next step, I went to school, distributed my questionnaire, collected my questionnaire. All of this is called the operations or the procedures. Now we come to the research hypothesis or the research question. And this is very, very important. You need to have a set of research questions. Something like, well, students who use computers and learning their English language grammar are going to be better students, or they are going to score higher scores in the final exam than those who did not use computers. This is a research hypothesis. You need to have these research hypotheses. And where they come from? They come from literature. Let's say, well, X or me, let's say me, I researched this and I found that, yes, students who use computers in learning grammar scored higher marks than the lower ones, or than those who did not use computers in the final exam. So you would say, well, Al-Faraidan found this finding, and I want to test this results as a hypothesis in my study. So this is called a research hypothesis. But let's say that nobody researched this before. You couldn't find any answer in the literature about it. Then it becomes a research question. So a research hypothesis is something that previously answered by different researchers. This is a research hypothesis. A research question is something that is not answered before. This is why it's called a question, because there is no answer in the literature or in the previous studies. No one before you answered this question. So this is the difference between a research hypothesis and a research question. It is the test of your idea or theory. Well, this is your idea that computers are good to learn the language. So you put it as a hypothesis. A hypothesis is a statement. This is the definition. A hypothesis is a statement that describes or explains a relationship among variables. So in my example, the hypothesis showed the relationship between the two variables, computers and learning English grammar. It is a prediction that is derived from your research question. Well, if you don't have research hypothesis, you have a research question. So sometimes it is advisable that you answer your research question as a prediction. from your reading, from your expertise, you can answer your research question. Even if it is not mentioned before, it is called a prediction. You predict that the answer to your question is going to be blah, 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 blah. And then you need to compare your prediction with your results. So let's say that you say, well, nobody before used iPads to teach English grammar. So will iPad be useful to teach English grammar? You would say, I predict, yes, it's going to be useful. This is your prediction from the start. At the end of your research, if it is turned to be useful, well, then you would say, well, my prediction was good. Okay. But if it is not, do not change your prediction. Some people go back and they erase that prediction. No, keep it. It's interesting. Because your answer maybe was or might be or might have been based on some good arguments. So keep it as it is. Shared journey staff education will improve patient satisfaction as compared to units whose staff did not receive SJ training. This is an example. Internalized stigma is related to increased depression. These all examples from different fields. We will have some examples from our field, linguistics or applied linguistics. Let's go back to this website. Where is the internet? This is a very thorough and deep discussion about formulating questions and hypotheses about differences and relationships. If you read it, it's going to be a very good guide. You are not asked to memorize all of these, and this is just for your general information. We are going to talk about some examples just to show you what is a research question or research hypothesis. Here we have a research question. Is there a difference between Taiwanese high school girls and boys in attitudes to learning English? Do they have different attitudes? Do you have a positive attitude towards learning English or a negative attitude? Is there a difference between boys and girls? This is a research question. A hypothesis would be there is a difference between Taiwanese high school girls and boys in attitudes to learning English. And the more we have more examples here. We have the same example. Here is one example of a research question. What listening strategies do intermediate Hong Kong learners of English use? Well, it appears that nobody in Hong Kong explored this question before, so here we formulate a question. We want to know their strategies while they are listening to English. What kind of strategies they use? Do they have, for example, dictionaries? They stop their listening and then check the dictionary for difficult words. Do they ask colleagues? Do they ask teachers? What strategies do they use while learning English? And then the researcher would list all the strategies. Here is one hypothesis. There is a difference between Taiwanese high school girls. It's the same. Here is one that's related to the previous one. There is a relationship between sex and attitude to learning English among Taiwanese high school students. So you would say there is a relationship between attitude and sex, but it does not show you which is in favor or which is not. Is it boys that have positive attitudes, or are they gears? The gears who have the positive attitude. So sometimes you need to be clear in your hypothesis, and there is a whole discussion here about how to refine your hypothesis to look very clear. This is just to show, as I said, some examples of research hypotheses and research questions from our field, which is linguistics or applied linguistics. Now let's go back to our PowerPoint here. As a summary for the whole 3 talks or 3 lectures, the previous 3 lectures, start thinking about who you want to participate in your study, how you will recruit them, how you will collect the data, etc. So you need to think about the sample, how you are going to select them, how you are going to recruit them, to compensate them, and how you are going to collect data from them through questionnaires, interviews, observations, etc. Decide if you want a single or multiple groups of participants, and if you want to collect data at one time or over time. As I said, do you want to have them as one group with different treatments, or no, 2 groups with different treatments? Are you going to have them at one time or longitudinal time over time, every 5 months, every 1 year, every 20 years, etc. Start thinking about how you can minimize, eliminate, confound, and bias. I talked about this briefly. I skipped this because it's not as important as the information provided by the last 3 lectures. You need to you don't need to be biased. You don't want to have some bias in your research. Why? Because if you are biased towards something in your research, towards your sample, towards your treatment or your methods, your results is going to be biased, and you are not going to show us the reality or the truth. From research, we seek truth. By being biased, you try to hide the truth, and this is not good. So try to avoid bias. As I said, do not select samples because you like them. Do not select samples because they are only around you and you don't want to travel. No, this is only bias from the researchers towards his research. Do not show us good results. Why? Because you want just to show us good results because you like computers. You want to prove that computers are good. No, try to be scientific, try to be fair and unbiased. Formulate a research hypothesis, and I gave you some little introduction about this with the website that we went to give you more information about formulating research hypotheses. I hope I was very light in this lecture, and I hope you digested the information so you can implement them, inshallah, in your research. Thank you again for watching, attending, and listening. Wish you all the best.